Next week, we'll be discussing A Christmas Carol from 1984. Tom, how was your watch?
My watch was good. I will say this is one of my favorite stories of all time. I love this book. I've read it a number of times. I would say I think my favorite still is the 1951 Alistair Sim version, directed by Brian Desmond Hurst. This doesn't necessarily compare to that. I don't think. I don't think it's as enjoyable. My measure for what a great Christmas Carol is how Scrooge wakes up in the morning after the spirits have visited, and Sims's interpretation of that is hilarious, but grounded and really rich. I appreciated George Scott. I think he is working in a more maybe realistic milieu than Sim or past Scrooges have, which is a fine thing to try, but it doesn't have quite the same magic for me. So that's kind of my feeling here. I kind of appreciate the realism of it, but it doesn't have that necessarily that quality of rebirth that I look for in other Christmas Carol films. Dad, how was your first watch?
It was good. I enjoyed it. I kept expecting George C. Scott to slap a private and pull out his pearl-handled pistol.
Different film?
Yeah. He didn't have much of an English accent. Of course, mine was also my first Christmas Carol when I was a kid, and it was only maybe about 5 or 6 years old, the film, when I first saw it, because I saw it at about 7 or 8 years old. And I enjoyed it. That will always be the quintessential Christmas Carol. The part where he wakes up in the morning always it reminds me of if Bernie Sanders won the presidential election.
What day is it?
But this one was good. It was enjoyable. I have like a whole. I've watched almost every one they've ever made. It's kind of a hobby of mine, and it runs all through Christmas season. I listen to them and watch them over and over again. But I thought it was decent. It was. It was. I don't think as good as Sims, but it wasn't as bad as Henry Winkler. So he's up a notch from him. Oh, and KJ, how was your watch?
So this was my first watch of the 84 one. I've seen Scrooge. I grew up watching the Mickey's Christmas Carol. I think I've seen the Muppets one with Michael Caine. I would have enjoyed this movie better if it was a little colder out when I watched it, maybe with some hot chocolate, a warm blanket type milieu. Was that right there, Tom?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Milieu marshmallows.
A warm blanket milieu.
Yeah, like when you wake up in the morning.
As one does.
Yeah. You wake up in the morning and you need a milieu to get you through.
How about you, Nick? How was your watch?
This movie actually means a lot to me in the fact that I brought a TV movie to the show, which is I think probably a first, right? I don't know if we've ever had any. Well, that's not true. We had a German TV. Yeah, we had a German
World on a
TV.
Wire, the Clone Wars.
I take it back. Oh yes, I guess technically that was a
Oh.
TV episode.
Oh
But-
yeah, we do that every year, actually, don't we? Do
Yeah,
Christmas
now that I think
trivia
about
TV?
it.
It's actually pretty
But-
common.
But specifically as one movie, right? So just like Alex was saying when he grew up, had a certain movie that was his experience. This was A Christmas Carol for me. So we had the old VHS that my dad had taped off of the TV in 1984 when this came out. And every year we'd pull this out, pop it in there. And not only do I distinctly remember every scene of this film, I also remember the commercials in between. So the IBM compatible computers, or actually it was an IBM computer, excuse me, not compatible. It was an IBM computer, and it was a Charlie Chaplin lookalike campaign. So in between every scene, you would have this Charlie Chaplin doing his penguin dance selling IBM computers. So it distinctly, I have a distinct memory of that in my brain. And it was kind of weird seeing it without those commercials. The other thing I noticed was I think my dad must have missed the beginning of the movie because there's a scene where there's Fred, I think, is doing like an overlay of like when Marley passed away, and there's a carriage. I never
Yeah.
saw that. It jumped right into the title with the music all my life. So I finally got to see the full movie. But yeah, I still really enjoy this. The reason I brought this one to our attention, I don't have as rich of a knowledge of all the other ones like Alex does, or Tom or KJ with his animated versions. But I thought it was pretty good for like a TV movie. And I thought Scrooge was really compelling. I liked his dialogue in this. I really did enjoy the performance. But we'll save the rest of that for our episode next week.
A Christmas Carol is available on Amazon's Prime Video at the time of this recording.